In this episode, we speak with Sam Lee, co-founder and CEO of Thoropass, an information security compliance and audit solution that enables companies to get and stay compliant with infosec frameworks and privacy standards. Under Sam's leadership, Thoropass has supplemented its core products with audit services, pen testing, and AI cybersecurity solutions. Before Thoropass, Sam was an entrepreneur in residence at Bain Capital Ventures after running Zinc Platform, a Y Combinator-backed InsurTech startup, as co-founder and CTO. Thoropass now has over 1,000 customers and is backed by leading investors such as JP Morgan, Bain Capital, Canapi Ventures, and BCV. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Sam, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Great. Glad to be here.
I'm going to start off at a unique place because we share something in common. We both went to UVA. You've been a part of three great organizations or institutions, UVA, HBS, Y Combinator. At which of those places did you learn the most?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I was born and raised in Shanghai, China, and Charlottesville was my first stop in the States. So that was not only my introduction to college, it was my intro to the United States. So that was definitely a very unique experience. I've been living in the New York area since then. I did HBS and YC during HBS. I actually dropped out of business school for a year for my YC company. Didn't work, but and I eventually went back to finish school. It's a hard choice. I have to say HBS. And I met my co-founder for my last company at HBS. And I also met my wife in business school. So I think I have to give it to that.
Incredible. A lot of people talk about Y Combinator. They love kind of putting that on as a credential, and obviously rightfully so. There's been a lot of great companies to come out of there. What's maybe one or two things that you do learn at Y Combinator?
I think twofold, right? Obviously the network, kind of the brand name is great, but the one thing that I learned the most is about a sense of urgency. And that may come natural for some people, then someone may need a bit of a push or a reminder, right? Startups are hard things to build and they're not meant to succeed. So in order to do that, you have to go extra hard, right? It's not about, what do you do this quarter? Like every week you need to make progress, like you need to learn something or you need to start getting to your numbers. And I think they have a very strong system and community to kind of help you push for that. And now I think, as an alum for the past, 7, 8 years, what I get the most out of it now is they are truly at the cutting edge of the AI revolution of like the latest and bleeding edge technology development. Like they obviously have an internal community where people post about the new thing, and it's much faster and much more practical than things you read on the news outlet. So now as an alum, like I would say that's what I benefit the most from.
We know how you found your co-founder, but what made you think that this person would be a good co-founder for you?
I have two sets of co-founders, right? My first company, we met at business school, and then we really hit it off. We're in the same discussion group. He was a insurance banker, so he came with all the domain knowledge. So my first company is a InsurTech company. And I was a software engineer and product person before. So kind of the skill set really matched. But I think the most important thing is the chemistry really matched, right? However, what I think is a little bit lacking is, from my perspective, I stayed too close to my lane of technology. Like I was the CTO of my first company, right? I didn't participate or I didn't kind of voice my opinion as strongly for the business side of things, which now I learned is definitely the more important part of the early stage startup. So we're both very nice. We really like each other. Like, even after the company, he was one of my best men at my wedding. But I don't think we challenge each other enough, asking the hard questions, making hard decisions. So that I would say is something I learned. So my current company, Thoropass, I have two co-founders, right? We still look very different when we didn't know each other before starting the company, but the chemistry really checked out. And this time we figured out a pattern how we challenge each other, holding each other accountable. And we have had several kind of role changes throughout the 6-year journey. Like I started running product engineering, I was running the business side for a couple of years, and now I'm kind of moving back to product engineering. So that is all coming from the level of maturity, of awareness, and kind of trusting each other that we can have those conversations and reinventing our roles. Even running a company with senior leadership is very different from running a startup, but we're able to evolve and attract good people around us.
Now, let's get into the company Thoropass and what it does. It's such a unique kind of niche. Like, how did you come up with this particular idea?
So it was a pain point that I faced running my last company. So at Therapass, we do information security compliance and IT audits. So when I was running my last company, Zinc, it was a 15-person startup, but we started getting questions about, hey, do you have a data security program? Do you have this certification? Are you HIPAA compliant? And we were frankly very underprepared for those questions, right? The software works, the business works, but we don't have a fully robust compliance program. And I was scrambling, searching the internet, like trying to find the right tool, the right service to help me get those certificates and set up the program. And such a solution didn't exist. So then that's why I spent a year in between kind of just looking for startup ideas. And eventually it all comes back to a pain point that I faced as a startup operator or as a consumer. And I think, this is almost like a hack for product market fit, right? You can discover product market fit for other people's problem, but a shortcut to that is to find something that you have experienced yourself. The short answer to your question is it is something that I struggled with, and luckily many companies also do. That's why how we become where we are.
Yeah, and how big is the market, or how do you view your market?
I think it's bigger than all of us I thought. We've grown super fast over the past 6 years. I think the driver here is traditionally those information security compliance requirements and audits are really more of a tech company thing, right? But now every company is a tech company. Every company has data that they host, and there's obviously more privacy and cybersecurity regulations being pushed out. So there's just more drivers from regulators, from big software buyers to push everybody to up their cybersecurity game and up their compliance game. So it's a large market and it's also very fast growing.
What's been the hardest part of growing your company? Maybe something that you didn't face in your first startup, but you're facing now, and it's where you spend your time really focusing.
So I think a couple of things, right? One, as I said earlier, the skill set and the mentality you need to run a pre-product market fit on a 10-person team is very different from we're now about 200 people scaled with fully functioning sales, marketing, product team. Running those two different organizations is actually a very different skill set, right? That requires me to evolve, that requires my co-founder to evolve, that requires the people around us to evolve, or in many cases, like sometimes we have to make hard choices and make sure the people who are working at the company are the best fit for the stage that we're in. And that's something that they teach a little bit of business school, but I haven't experienced before. And you have to learn that from experience and, talking to other people going through similar journeys. I think that was the biggest learning and, things that we have to keep up with over time. And number two, I think is balancing the attractiveness of a big market versus competition, right? Because there are smart people everywhere. And, when a vertical has been established, a lot of people jump into it. And then you have to think harder on what's your differentiation, why are you the right solution versus we're just throwing money at growth, right? And in our case, starting very early days, we do the IT audit where most of our competitors, they only focus on the compliance readiness side of things. And that has been our biggest differentiation, since then. And we're obviously layering a lot of Gen AI tools into our workflow to create a much better audit experience. And that's why our customers love about us.
The notion of a competitive landscape and maybe folks out there looking at what you're doing, does that change the way in which you operate in any way? Meaning, will you be more secretive about what you're doing? Do you try to not make it so obvious what you're doing or where you're headed?
Yeah, 100%. I think in a competitive market, there is a lot of game theories out there to be played, right? overall, like we're trying to focus on our own game and like not get kind of overly obsessed with this, but it does make a difference. Like when there are very well-funded competitors, right, that lowers the price and increase the complexity. And then you can choose, okay, do I get into this money burning contest, or I try to figure out something new in an adjacent market, or figure out different use cases for the technology that we build, or maybe try out different distributions. And we've kind of gone through several iterations of those exercises. But yeah, and obviously the intensity of competition changes your investor and your customers' viewpoint on the industry, right? That have different implications that you have to be mindful of as you make strategic decisions on what your company does. What I can tell you for sure is usually just copying your largest competitor is not the way to go, right? And you have to think a little bit harder and really understand your customer and build something different, because anybody can build software these days.
You have some notable investors. One is JP Morgan, I believe. What do you think it is that drew your investors to your particular solution?
That's a great question. Obviously there's the table stakes, which is all the metrics, all the KPIs, the attractions. But the type of investors that I love the most are kind of like beyond the initial traction. Like there is a underlying thesis, which is how they view the world. And that is a prerequisite for investing in companies. And in our case, like IT audits have existed for decades, but the way it is being done, the way it should be done, is having some pretty profound changes. And I want to find investors who will have the same or similar worldview as us, and who understand that here is how it was done before, here is what it should be done, and this is the winning company that is kind of helping the world going through that journey. So that's one criteria that I want to find that all of our investors have. And there's also obviously the things that they want to be supportive, right? Like asking people how they behave when there's stress and when things are not going as well is a better question to have. And luckily, we have very supportive investors across all the ranks.
And knowing what you know now about building companies or starting companies, is there one piece of advice you would give to someone else who is either currently on their entrepreneurial journey or considering it?
Yeah. So I think one piece that I learned is like I'm talking about in the context of a venture-backed, startup, like finding the right market and finding the right problem to solve is in many cases more important than building the best solution or having the best AI. And there are a lot of problems in this world, but not all of them are worth solving from a commercial sense. And many problems should be solved in a way that is not in a VC backable way. There are different ways to start companies. But you want to be really thoughtful around what idea that you pick to work on. The most expensive thing is your time, right? And if you haven't kind of thought through a little bit on what the future looks like, it's very easy to suck a lot of time on ideas that it's not worth it. And then obviously, in this whole journey, you need to be intellectually honest about product market fit, about your own strengths and weaknesses, about the market situation, the capital market. The worst thing you can do is to pretend things are working when they're not. And that takes humility and self-awareness to do.
Excellent. We're coming up on the tail end of the conversation. One question I always like to ask folks is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Yeah, I would say my wife. We met at business school. She is the most hardworking person I've ever met. If she's on the train, like she will be getting things done, right? And that's like the superpower that I wish I have, but I don't. I have a lot of respect for what she does, and obviously she's very supportive of my startup journey. And at the same time, I think we're learning from each other.
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I have two causes that I care about. One is computer science education. Right? I think we as a society is drastically under-invested and understaffed for people who can get the next generation skilled up specifically around computer science. I think Gen AI has a big role to play here, not only in changing maybe what's needed, but to be able to scale education in a dramatic way. Number two, I grew up in China. I came to the States after high school. There are many more Asian founders than there were before, but we're still squarely the minority. I feel proud about my heritage, and I wish my journey can encourage more Asians and Asian Americans to jump into the startup journey and be a founder, be an early employee. Our group is known to be a little bit risk averse, which is okay, but I think we need more representation in the world of founders and startups.
Wonderful. Well, Sam, want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, RJ. I really enjoyed it.